there we go. So now we are live on 3 different platforms, and when you're ready to take it, Carrie, and start your show, we'll sync up everything with you. I'm going to talk to some people on my background. I'm going to mute my mic very quickly. All right, Carrie, the ball's in your court. When you're ready to get the show started, we're all up and running.
Okay. Well, that's clean. Get us here. Ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. We got nice chair here for you. We've updated our equipment. Okay. Micah, I'm going to put this. So, you guys can see each other.
Carrie, I don't see anything on your screen.
We can move that way.
I see your I see your radio computer.
Okay, so I'm going to put it on. Carla.
And look at that, already getting hate on the other streams. That's
You
awesome.
just stay there, you're fine.
Okay.
Now, if you see my profile, it's because I'm looking at you.
Okay, all right.
Already getting hate?
Yeah, already getting hate. Yep.
Close it in case people come in.
People are bold behind computers. Okay, and I am now also recording. Carrie, it's all yours. It's your ball when you want to start your show.
Thank you. Ready?
Is my audio coming through good at this setting?
Christchurch, so executive director, and I'm executive director. She is the chair of the executive task force for WRUU. But we're going to discuss HB 140 and what existential threat this means to medical providers and trans-Georgian families affected by SB 140. So let's dive in.
Okay, looks like we got Mike up.
Mike, are you there?
Yes, Carrie, I'm here. Thank you for having me on your show today.
Okay. So, thank you both for joining tonight's show. Let's dive in. What is SB 140?
Well, SB 140 is a Senate bill that was narrowly actually got out of the Senate. We held it up there for quite some time, and then it made crossover at the last possible moment. It has gone to the House, where it was voted on this past week, forced through with a few amendments. And it basically is trying to take control of healthcare decisions from parents and put them in the state's hands.
Wow. I know I've had discussions. I've seen people talking about
SB
140, and this is important because it's coming up for vote on Monday.
They expect it to be voted on Monday, and at this point, we don't know where it's going. I think it is. What people don't seem to realize, and the senators seem to not realize, is it is literally a case of life and death. The percentage of transgender youth that will attempt suicide is over 40%. Some of those will be successful, and that means it is literally a case of life and death. These senators and House members who voted for this should be held culpable for any deaths by suicide caused by this bill.
Wow. Mike, I know you've done a lot of research on this. You have children. You just went through your transition over the last few years. How do you feel about this?
I thank you for having me on the show, Carrie. I've read this bill. I have a copy here in front of me, and there's more to it than just banning gender affirming care, and it's not a difficult read. If people want to follow along, Lexicorp can give you a free copy online. You can get it from the Georgia House. But I found that the bill does a couple of things. The first thing is we have to look at the General Assembly notes on the bill, and if you go into SB 140 on page 1, and you look at line 13, and I have it highlighted here in front of me, it says there's a massive unexplained rise in diagnosis of gender dysphoria over the past 10 years. Well, the very first thing in this bill, under section 1, the first paragraph, line 13, is an absolute farce. There is a very good explanation as why there's a rise in gender dysphoria. And we're not talking about gender dysphoria in children. We're talking about gender dysphoria across the scale. And the biggest reason we've seen a rise is because of the repeal of the Defense of Marriage Act in 2012 and the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell in the federal government in 2012, which allowed people to come out as transgendered for the first time since 1993, when they were legislatively put into the closet under Don't Ask, Don't Tell and the Defense of Marriage Act. So I first wanted to address that portion of the bill. The second thing is, let me see who wrote it in here. Senator Summers of the 13th District of Georgia put in a number 3 bullet that said a significant portion of children with gender dysphoria do not persist past early adulthood. And that's simply an untrue statement. I actually have the research for the National Institute of Health up on my screen now, and I can share it with you if you can see it. And from the National Institute of Health, we're looking at what's called the Phenomenology of Gender Dysphoria. This was a study that started in 1980 and completed in 2010. It was done by Kate Cooper, assisted by Alyssa Russell, William Mandy, Catherine Butler. It's been reviewed over 56 times, tried, recreated. There's been over 1,491 papers that have cited this. This has been published multiple times. And as a matter of fact, on Senate Bill 141, Ben Watson plagiarized portion of this bill to put facts into his, but then ignored the remainder of the bill when going after SB 88, 140, and 141. So I just want to make that very clear. The very place that the Senate is citing things that do not exist. I'm looking at it right here on my screen right now, and I'm sharing that screen with you for those of you who are following live at home. The fourth sentence says the treatment for gender dysphoria is surgery, and that is not a blanket statement that's true in itself at all. And I'm reading from the bill. Surgery is not the only treatment for gender dysphoria. And
actually, it's the last treatment for gender dysphoria. There are multiple treatments prior to reaching that. And at this point in the state of Georgia, South Carolina, Northern Florida,
oh, you broke out there a little bit.
to get surgical treatment, whether you're a minor or an adult surgical treatment in the state of Georgia, period, because there are no surgeons doing gender-affirming care or gender-affirming surgery in Georgia at this time.
Well, if I could continue cutting down this, number 5, the very next statement by Senator Summers was no large-scale studies have been tracked. That's simply not true. Appendix A of the study that Ben Watson quoted in this bill and Senator Summers quoted in this bill, if they just read through the entirety of the story and got to the very first appendix, it lists 20 different long-term studies. So not only are they lying, but they're intentionally lying to the public in this bill. And their conclusion, now this is Senator Summers with Ben Watson and 48 others in the House who are making the assessment of these studies that they're quoting from the National Institute of Health. Their assessment is allow the child time to mature and develop in their own identity is preferable. They acknowledge that the study concluded, these 20 studies that came together into this large-scale study over 30 years, which the American Psychiatric Association has said, allowing the child time to mature and develop in their own identity is preferable. They actually quoted that in the bill, but then they turn around and said, but we're going to make all the things that the APA has listed illegal. Now, if I could get into Section 2, which is the actual part of the bill, and this is what's going to be codified into Georgia law. Except as provided in subsection B, no sex reassignment surgeries or other surgical procedures can be performed on a child. Now, that's interesting because in Appendix B, you can have sexual enhancement surgeries as long as that enhancement corresponds with your gender or your sex identified at birth. So if you want to give a 12-year-old breast implants, this bill allows it. If you want to put penis implants, pectoral implants, or gluteal implants into a male who identifies as a male, it is allowed under this law. The only people who cannot have these procedures are transgender people, and it's because they don't want transgender people to get gender-affirming care. And I heard the statement earlier that they're just blocking surgeries, but that's not true, because if you go down to Section 3, it says, line 55, treatment of gender dysphoria is prohibited in this state. The very last line of the first paragraph to change the official criminal code of Georgia 433415 says the treatment of gender dysphoria will be or are prohibited in this state. And it's not for minors, it's for everyone. They're sneaking that in under the radar. They're putting out the press release of what they want it to see. I have it here on my screen. Wow. You guys can see it here. Let me get it right up here for you. But right there. Oh, it's mirrored. But it says right here, treatment of gender dysphoria is prohibited in the state. So they're not discussing publicly that part of the bill, but it's right there in Section 3. You feel free to go to the Georgia House website, download it, read Section 3, Paragraph A of what would be encoded into law outside of the discussion.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
Yeah,
yeah,
well,
back to you, Carrie.
that was not in any of the briefings that I've gotten through PFLAG or Georgia Quality, either one that they were talking about banning it for everyone, not just, and my understanding was that it was about medical care, not counseling or anything else. The wording on that actually kind of leads you to believe that they might want to ban counseling and everything else.
Well, Ben Watson, who is the only physician who sits on the Georgia board, has actually said through his liaison, which let me get the name of who actually said it, so I'm not misquoting or misguiding anyone through this. Let me find him here. We had some people go up to meet with Ben Watson, and one of the people in his office at 302 Alpha in Georgia actually said their intent is not to do anything for any children, transgender or otherwise. This is a filler bill. This bill will actually do very little in the daily lives of most people. It's something that works through the medical board. In essence, if you're on the transgender side of this, it's state forced medical malpractice because it goes against the standard of care. But if you're on the Republican side, this is a feeler bill. If they can get this through, there is more legislation beyond it. They're talking about it. They're bragging about it. Ben Watson, which is the person we went up to meet.
So, what does this mean for the children of?
What does it mean for the children?
Micah and Carla, what does this mean for the children?
What this means for the children is, first off, they're not going to be able to talk to counselors, therapists, etc. Now, if this were for attention deficit disorder, or if this were for just depression, one of the things that keeps getting pointed out by the right side of the parties is this is a mental condition. Well, gender dysphoria is a mental condition, but we treat mental conditions all the time. They are specifically targeting gender dysphoria because I guess they gave up after 40 years. They quit trying to pray the gay away. Now they're trying to legislate the gay away. People say there are actually bills today in state houses to make marriage strictly between a man and a woman, even though the federal government said no, that doesn't fly. They also said that about Roe v. Wade 40 years ago. We've got to watch this. It is, honestly, it is fascism, plain and simple. It is, we know what is best for you. We know what is best for your children. We know what is best for your body. And if you do not want to conform to what we believe is best, we will outlaw you.
Wow.
Plain and simple.
Well, Carrie, let me get back to your question.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Let me get back to your
Yes,
question
yes.
without pivoting it to other things. Your question was, what does this mean
Okay.
for the children with gender dysphoria? And this is what it will mean if this bill goes through in Georgia. It means that a transgender child who is aware of their gender identity and is going to go through the process is first going to be forced to live, present, and go through puberty in one gender, and then after they turn 16, start the long, arduous process of reversing that and going through a second puberty as their preferred gender. So it means double puberty, less desirable results, because people who are able to transition before or during puberty are usually more passable. They're more successful. They develop the characteristics of their preferred gender rather than becoming more characteristic of their biological gender. So, in the trans community, passing privilege is a thing. People that transition earlier are generally more successful than people who, like myself, waited till they were in their 40s to transition.
Right, that's very true, Mike. One of the most important things with especially male to female is voice. Once that testosterone hits, there is no reversing the voice. Myself, I went through a lot of voice therapy, which did help because prior to that voice therapy, I spoke a lot like that. And this was something that is very non-conforming to a feminine appearance, yet misgendered on the telephone every time I talk to somebody. It would be much better if I had hormone blockers in those days, or puberty blockers, and you as well, I'm sure. They are not permanent. All medical professionals say this is the treatment, this is the standards of care. Why do we want to force people to not follow medical advice?
Well, I think there's another.
And I'm sorry, I don't have the bill in front of me. I haven't read through the entire bill. It's just anything that's anti is really distressing to the kids, and that really distresses me.
Well, this bill will start the process, and then there's two more behind it, SB 88 and SB 141, which are also anti-trans bills that we will see likely in the next session. Go ahead, Carrie.
So we talk a lot about suicide in the trans community, but specifically this comes home to Georgia and comes local because within the last year there have been who was trans and was out as trans and committed suicide. So what does this mean for those families who are supportive of these medical procedures and medical practices, treatments, not being able to get that? Will this have an impact here?
Well, you'll certainly see a certain percentage of those parents, and God bless the ones that do support their kids. Unfortunately, it's around 50% less. Some of them will actually move to states that will allow to take care of their children. Some of them will be forced to do the best they can. Some of them will probably go to bootleg hormone therapies and things that are not nearly as safe or as effective. I personally know several people that have gotten their hormones from less than reputable sources, I should say.
Wow.
Well, I think the effect is going to be a little less dramatic in our state. And the reason I kind of disagree is with this bill specifically being understood to just stop gender affirming surgeries. We don't do gender affirming surgeries in Georgia until the 18th birthday. So the ban of saying 16 and below not getting surgeries isn't going to change a thing in Georgia. What's in place will stay in place. What's happening now will continue to happen. But this bill is the feeler. It's the start bill. If they can get this pushed through and they don't get a lot of pushback and funding doesn't drop, I mean, I have followed the money up on the screen now. If you look at these people who are writing this bills and where their money is coming from, I'll go ahead and bring it up here. If you pull up where their money's coming from, they and what committees they sit on, as long as we don't interrupt the flow of money to these people, more bills will follow. The effect of this bill is going to be minimal. People who want the surgeries are still going to get the surgeries at the normal time when they get the surgeries, after they turn 18, after working with their primary care physician and their mental health specialist and their surgeon when it's deemed safe and appropriate to do so. And the bill doesn't change that. It just says you can't start the process until you're 16. Most children, when they transition, they start with a social transition, maybe preferred pronouns, a new name, and they may wear clothing and an appearance that is consistent with their preferred gender. And then they continue going through treatments and therapies until they're of age. And then if it's viable, there's scales, and I'm not going to get into that on this show, but if they meet the criteria, then they may be given puberty blockers and given time to decide which sex they want to go through puberty as. And then with the parents and the children.
Blockers or HRT are all specifically excluded in this bill.
Yes. But and it would put a 2-year delay for most people and up to a 6-year delay on others.
So
Yes.
let's explain the form. Yeah.
I'm sorry, there was a little bit of a lag there. Go ahead.
So let's explain. I can't hear you. I'm sorry. You cut out. Go ahead.
I said there was a little bit of a lag there, but at the end of the day, for most people going through these treatments, it's only going to delay the process for 2 years.
Okay. Well, I think this sounds like it's leading to a larger discussion, and Georgia legislature, upon every conservative legislature, was working on eliminating abortion. Now they're working on trans and LGBT. Why is all of this trans rights become such a political target?
Because we're a very small portion of the population.
My personal opinion is that we're a small enough population, and that we don't have. It's misunderstood in the general public, I think.
Okay.
What it is to be trans. It's becoming more and more common. There are more people that know a transgender person, which does lead to a certain amount of acceptance. Unfortunately, there is still a very large percentage of people that mistake gender and sex, biological sex. They consider them the same. I was on a panel this past week with a pediatric doctor from Charleston in South Carolina, which is also trying to pass a bill very similar to this, if not even more restrictive. And I know you've got listeners on that side of the border as well. And their statement was over 2,000. First off, there's not necessarily just XX or XY when we're talking about chromosomes. There are XXY, there are XYY, there are all kinds of in between. These are what we would quickly refer to as intersex people.
Well,
and there are
before we go into that,
in the state of South Carolina every year that have ambiguous sexual genitalia.
So before we get into that,
But people don't talk about that.
well, they do. It's in SB 141.
They also very rarely talk about the female to male.
Okay, so this is a technique used in the trans community called pivoting.
What is it? 141?
Yeah, so I'm going to stop the pivot here because it takes away from our fight, and I see the point. But the idea that transgenderism is only valid in ambiguous or extra sex chromosomes or the sexually ambiguous population is a farce, and it actually brings discredit to me and people like me. I have XY chromosomes. I do not have extra anything, and I'm just as valid as someone who would. This is even a smaller portion of the population, and to say that our fight correlates or aligns with people in that group is unfair. It's just not fair. Transgender people do not exist because of chromosome variants. We exist because internally our gender identity. But it comes up all the time, and it's just not valid. In SB 88 SB 141 and SB 140 give an exclusion to those people. So using that as the foundation of the argument and putting that out at this point in the argument, the Republicans have already thought about that. And they said, if you have a third chromosome, it doesn't apply to you.
It is just another point.
Yeah, but it's an irrelevant point.
It's just another point about it.
It's an irrelevant point that I have the right to live in my preferred gender, in the gender that I am, without any interference from the state, and I don't need to bring in people who have a different medical condition than me to validate myself. I've been hearing that for years, and it's just invalid.
Well, and I'm not saying.
Why is this happening?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that there is a wide variety out there. People tend to think of male and female. I deal with a lot of kids that are non-binary. They're just as valuable as
right. I'm just trying to keep
male to female or female to male to female.
Right, but I'm trying to keep and I'm not taking away from that. Yes, people with those characteristics are welcome into our umbrella, and we will advocate for them and fight for them and support them and protect them. I agree with you, and they are more than welcome to be part of our community. Yeah. But these three bills going through
targets kids.
Oh, go ahead.
And this bill in particular targets kids, and I have known some of these people who were assigned one sex at birth and identified as another, that were intersex, and that were their care was very much restricted. So it does cross over into that. They had been denied care because they were identified as a boy, but they self-identified as a girl. And they did have, they were functional in both sexes. So it does cross over to where they would be denying care for that as well, because now that's become gender dysphoria. Because their birth certificate says they're a boy, but they identify as a girl.
So this is bigger. This is part of a larger argument, which sounds like an attack on trans kids, trans communities, and they're trying to start in the home by eliminating. Saying that this is an attack on children, allowing them to get gender transforming care.
It is a technique. It is a technique we saw by Joseph Goebbels in 1929.
And there's a lot of misinformation. Yeah, but what I end up hearing a lot is, trans people, trans women, they're trying to go into schools and read, and they're not good role models for children. You need to keep them away from your children. This could be farther.
Well, you can look to Florida. They're trying to, there's a bill introduced there that's looking to possibly take children away from trans parents.
Mike, what you got?
I get it, but again, I'm going to take it back to Goebbels in 1929, the propagandist for the Nazi Party. They didn't start targeting the Jews. If you go back and you look at Goebbels and his campaigns from 1929 forward, they started with the transgender and LGBTQ community. The very first people to land in concentration camps with the pink triangles were the transgender community. The very first. It was several years later when they started going after. So you take a part of the population and you start fear mongering. The Republicans will say these things that people with they'll use the term transvestitism, which is totally different than gender dysphoria. And they'll say this is a sexual thing, and they want to sexualize you. They want to sexualize your children. That's not true. All I want to do is live my life the same as anyone else. I'm not after anyone else's kids. I have a partner who meets all of my needs, and she's my age, and I just, the idea is from Goebbels was, if you say something loud enough and often enough and repeat it over and over and over, it becomes the truth. And all I can say to that is, the right is lying to you. Hold on, we lost our link. We're going to get you back on.
Are you going to go back to the TikTok?
What?
Are you going to go back to the live?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm still on the live. We dropped.
It's paused.
That's okay. We're going to fix it.
It says live paused.
I got it.
Recording in progress.
There we go. We're back on. Carrie, let's get you back in. We'll continue.
I'm going to be on both lives watching.
Wonderful.
Okay. Don't ask how I'm able to do it.
This is why working remotely is so difficult. We are pausing for station identification and commercial. Okay, we're almost back. Carrie, it's on you. Yes. Yes. Why does your opinion on transgender people matter? You're not one of us. It doesn't matter. I don't care. It's like me having an opinion on stem cell research. It doesn't matter. It's like me having an opinion on what astronauts should do on the fucking space station. It doesn't matter. So no, your opinion, unless you are trans, your opinion about trans people doesn't matter to trans people. My opinion on how black people should live doesn't matter. I'm not black. My opinion on whatever just doesn't matter. So, excuse me. All right, Kara, we're back. How are we doing? No, it's not a discussion. I'm having a discussion with other people. I'm letting my. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Verb altitude and Carla Baylor and Micah Smith are both veterans, and we've been talking about HB 140, and we're talking about what HB 140.
Excuse me, it's SB.
Sorry, SB 140 means here in Georgia, and why all of a sudden this is such a prominent conversation. You're saying something, Micah?
I'm sorry. What was your question, Carrie?
Oh, you were starting to say something as we were coming into the.
Sure. Yeah. At the end of the day, the idea that going back to SB 140, the idea that we're giving bottom surgery or top surgery to anyone under the age of 18 in the state of Georgia just isn't true. I mean, and I mean, that's the part that's missing from this whole discussion. This is a law searching for a problem. There is not a problem that this law is designed to do. But what this bill will do...
No, and in fact, even if you're over 18, you're not going to get that here. Yeah, even if you're over 18, you're not going to get bottom surgery in the state of Georgia because there is no surgeons doing it.
Well, there are surgeons. There are surgeons here in Savannah that do gender-affirming surgery. I had surgery in Savannah.
Well, I can't find them.
Oh, you got your top part.
Yes. And you know what? The same surgeon who did the top can absolutely do the bottom surgery.
The upper.
Really?
Well, that's not been my experience.
Yeah. After the show, I'll be happy to share a list of different surgeons in the area who are qualified. Now, you just can't walk into a surgeon's office and get bottom surgery or even top surgery. You know, there's procedures. But yeah, it can be done.
And I know some clinical doctors here that don't know of anybody here locally either. So that might be good information to have.
My physician offered it. I was also lined up with a surgeon in Charleston, which is a short drive from Savannah, if I wanted to get it done there.
Yeah, I haven't been able to find anybody at their state. But regardless, that's not what this discussion is about. None of them are going to do it to anybody under 18. That's the bottom line.
So
Right.
I do have a question because Carla, you're around children. Micah, you have children. Do either
Six
of you
children.
think that you pose a threat to children, or children pose a threat to becoming trans or changing their gender identity?
Well, out of my 6
I think
children,
we must this mind control going on. Yeah, I don't know how we do it because I haven't been able to actually consciously do it.
so of my 6 children, none of them have ever expressed a desire to be any part of the LGBTQ umbrella. You know, my girls have boyfriends, my boys have girlfriends or wives. They're married, they have their families. I've got one who's a civil engineer in Washington State, another who's up in Atlanta who works with a credit card firm. My 3rd son is married and a member of the armed forces. And then my 3 younger children are so far living what would be considered a normal life. My children are doing well in school. Matter of fact, my youngest is in beta club and honor roll. No, I don't think there's any risk. And even if, you know, one of my children came out as anything under the LGBTQIA umbrella, well, that happens to cisgender parents. So what's the difference, and how is that wrong? I think if anything, it would be a blessing to them because I understand and I know the process and I can support them and help them. But honestly, I wouldn't ask this life of any of my children. And when people come to me, and as you know, Carrie, people do, and they tell me I'm trans or whatever, one of the first things I try to do is, ascertain if it's certain, because it's a horrible life. Right now, your show is being broadcasted on multiple channels, and if you could read, like here, Cupcake 2134 is like, you now have 4 children. I'm going to kill 2. 6 kids is a lie. You're a lie. I mean, the hate that I get from simply existing from people who don't know me. I don't want that for anybody's child. But if you are in this, then people like us in this room here today are so important, because we are going to be the ones that aren't going to try to bully you, hurt you, or kill you. We're going to love you and support you and help you find your place, where that's not what the world wants. The world wants someone they can kick, that they can bully, that they can beat up, that they can take joy from bringing harm.
Most young people I work with, most of the young people I work with, Micah, are terribly. Most of them are terrified to come out to their parents because they either know their parents won't accept them, or in some cases one parent will, the other won't. Some of them can't come out because of work. They're afraid to be fired. My interest in kids is want them to be happy. To me, the sound of a giving baby is the proof that they're to God. But some of the remarks that I get both on Facebook and other places lead me to wonder that there might be a devil as well. Just because there's so much hate in the world, and all I want is people to feel loved, honored for who they are. Not what they are, but who they are.
I'm looking at this bill again. I'm looking at the people who write it. And Carrie, as we get close to the end of your show here in about 14, 15 minutes, I'm just going to make this statement bold, and I will say it to any one of these any of these senators or House representatives. They have these, we're on the radio, I can't say what, they have these fraudulent terms that, are things like taking care of children, empowering parents, and anything. It's not. They're not looking after anybody's child, because at the end of the day, a straight, heterosexual, cisgendered, or biologically binary and matching gender to their birth sex is not harmed by the existence of trans people. We take nothing away from anyone. All this bill does is inflict pain, suffering, and promotes denying acceptance, love, and a sense of community at a critical stage in a child's development when they just want to find their place and fit in. This bill legislates it. These young people who grew up as bullies have now found their way into the Senate and the State House, where they can continue to bully not only their generation, but generations to come. Nothing good comes from this bill. Nothing is prevented. Nothing is helped. No problem is solved. All that happens is people are now empowered to hate other people because of who they are. Not their character, not something they've done to deserve it, just who they are.
Bigotry.
Exactly. And the bills to follow, the bathroom bans.
Yeah, all it's
you know,
doing against people of color because their color, the skin color is different. It's
It's the
saying
same
you
thing.
are not valid because you're different than us.
And you know, the bathroom bans. Well, we don't want transgender people in our bathrooms. Yeah, I remember a time in Georgia, not that long ago, when if your skin matched a certain hue of brown or black, you weren't allowed in the bathroom with white people either. I get what you're trying to do.
Exactly.
But the fact is, if I go pee and wash my hands and leave, that has nothing to do with anybody else in that room.
Nope. And
And what's weird is the way they're writing these bills. Ben Watson wants to share a bathroom with me. I don't want to be anywhere near him. But he's like, no, I need to make sure you trans women are in my bathroom.
Far more instances of pastors' predatory practices. Churches are far more dangerous than bathrooms and transgender people in bathrooms. But that's a discussion for another day.
Micah, you were saying something?
I was saying, it's really weird. I mean, those of watching online and those see me see how I look. It's really weird. It's really weird that Ben Watson, Kirkpatrick, Kennedy, Moore, Beach, Dixon, all are trying to legislate, hey, Micah, I want you to use the bathroom I'm in. It's really weird because I don't want to be anywhere near those people, but they're like, no, I really want to watch you pee. I don't know why they do this. I just want to go to the bathroom, wash my hands, and go on about my
funny to
day.
go into the men's restroom and say, are you sure you're in the right bathroom? Take a good look and just say,
But it's really weird. It's really weird that the conservative men want to ensure that trans women use their bathroom. They want to make sure of that. They want to make it a law.
Well, maybe they want to meet up with us.
I got a question. Now, we're talking about a very small part of
Yes. And for male to female, it's about 0.25% of the population. And for female to male, it's about 0.5% of the population, to the NIH research between 1980 and 2010. It may be different now, but for the 30 years between 1980 and 2010,
the numbers have gone up, but actually the number of binary male to female and female to male tends to be roughly 50-50 as a percentage. The drastic increase has been in those who identify as non-binary. Which of course would not require any medical intervention.
And looking at that SB 88, even though that's not the topic of the discussion, I know we're getting toward the end, I want to remind you guys that just last week in Gwinnett County, there was a man arrested for attacking a mother and her daughter in the bathroom with a knife. The story is on Newsbreak. Yes, Gwinnett County, and it was not a trans woman. It was a cisgendered man. So, I mean, the bathroom laws or the bathroom stalls don't work anyway because it's not like there's a gatekeeper at the door. At the end of the day, it's just a way for straight men to...
Sexual predators are sexual predators.
Yeah, nothing they do. Attacking me isn't going to stop a sexual predator because I'm not one of them.
So we've got about 8 minutes left. Let's wrap the discussion here. So the major points that we want to summarize for our listeners and to dispel the myths and to talk about facts. What are some points that we really should focus on if people are listening?
Savannah, Georgia, Hinesville, Brunswick, Richmond Hill, Hinesville, and all the small towns in between. It is your fault that these bills are in existence because the writer and sponsor of these bills is your senator from District 1, Ben Watson. You voted him in. You kept him in for 13 years. If you disagree with this bill, it's your fault. You should have went to the polls and you should have voted. In District 168, less than 4,000 people showed up to the polls. 4,000. There are 74,000 voters in this area. 70,000 of you sat on the sidelines. It's unacceptable. If you think these bills are wrong, then the next election, get out there and put somebody new in this position. There were 3 challengers to Ben Watson. If you sit here and think this is an embarrassment to the state, Georgia is becoming an embarrassment to the rest of the country, and it's because the voters have put these people in power. You just got to get out there and vote. That is the number one thing that I think you should take away from these bills, is they're not doing anything but setting up a track to make things a lot harder in the future. And if you want to stop it, the only way to stop it is at the polls.
That's the ultimate goal, but today and tomorrow what we have to do is actually talk to the senators that are there, not necessarily just our own, but others. We need to flood their phones and emails with appropriate comments. We need to get any physicians, and there have been several that have already spoken to this. We have killed 3 anti-LGBTQ bills this year.
Okay.
This one barely made it.
And last thing, find out under followthemoney.org which organizations are supporting the $1.159 million backing these bills, and stop shopping at those places.
But go. Well, vote with their wallets, because ultimately that's what gets things done a lot of the times in this country.
I will add a positive comment that we got on Facebook from post. Leonard laws are not Christian. They are hateful, and I may not be the choice of the community, but people are concerned whatsoever their lifestyle. Humans matter.
Yeah, and I'll throw out that over 60, or right at 60% of Republicans don't agree with this bill.
Well, we'll be meeting with Mayor Van Johnson tomorrow.
Republican-Democrat divide, because honestly, this is being pushed by our governor, our lieutenant governor, and a few other far-right people who, and not by mainstream.
Yeah. Well, we're meeting with Mayor Van Johnson tomorrow at 10:30 at Johnson Square, right by. Oh yeah, we're meeting with Mayor Van Johnson tomorrow at 10:30 at Christ Church, Johnson Square, right there in front of Christ Church Episcopal, the Mother Church of Georgia, and we will be working with both political party leaders in the county and with the mayor to also assist us in fighting these bills. So that we're not going to go easy, we're not going sitting down, and we're getting more and more people behind the cause.
Tomorrow?
Yes, tomorrow 10:30,
This is
Johnson Square. Mayor Van Johnson, we're going to be meeting with Mayor Van Johnson. He will be joining us at Christ Church Episcopal tomorrow, and there will be, will you help us in telling Ben Watson to stop writing and stop supporting these bills?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very good.
Well, Carla and Mike, whichever one wants to go first. What is one thing that you would leave our listeners with without thinking too hard?
Love wins.
register to vote, and actually make a plan to vote, and bring someone with you to vote.
Okay. All right. Well, I really appreciate Carla, Faith Moore. Thank you for coming on your second time. Micah, you've been on several times. Thank you for putting all the social media together. Where we've been streaming for the past hour.
It's on a site called Misinformation on YouTube, and we have been live streaming on TikTok on Micah Smith _she_her. And after we finish the show, it will also be uploaded to about 13 other social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I mean, if you're out there, if you're following WRUU, if you're following Misinformation, we got you.
My contact information is really easy, Gary. It's Carla Moore, all lowercase, 923@gmail.com. Anybody who wants more information, would like to talk about these issues, is more than welcome to contact me.
And Mike?
Yes. I have multiple social media accounts. I'm not hard to find. If you Google me, Micah Smith, you'll find me. I'm an activist. I was the first transgender political candidate for the House of Representatives in the state of Georgia. I'm really easy to find. And if you see me walking around in your communities in Savannah, please feel free to come up, say hello.
All right. Well, thank you both for your time today. I really appreciate both of you. You've been listening to the verb out is not that of WRU. It's licensed or it's said. Thank you, Carla. Thank you, Micah.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Let's go right into our next little reggae groove.